Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some time management tips for startup founders. How I manage my time is a question people have been asking me about for several years now. They see that I write books, write a weekly newsletter, host workshops and coaching programs, build software products, and run 2 separate businesses. So they often write in asking, how do you manage your time, or how do you manage to get so much done? So first, let me come clean and say that it wasn't always this way. I used to work all the time, typically working 70 to 80-hour weeks, including nights and weekends. But then I had kids. That's when I quickly realized that something had to give. I learned that while you can negotiate with a wife or partner to work more hours, you can't negotiate with a crying baby. This forced me to search for more efficient ways to get work done, and that's when I started developing a set of work hacks that I'm going to share with you in this video. But before I get into my specific work hacks, let me first cover 3 underlying concepts or principles that were instrumental in shaping these work hacks. The first is recognizing that there are 2 types of work schedules, maker schedules and manager schedules. As a startup founder, you have to learn to balance both well. So what are maker and manager schedules? Paul Graham wrote an excellent essay on these 2 work schedules many years ago, which I'll link in the description below. But here's the gist. Managers typically organize their days into 1-hour blocks, each with a different task. Makers, on the other hand, need to organize their day into longer blocks of uninterrupted time. The cost of context switching is low and expected in a manager schedule, but high and a productivity killer in a maker schedule. The challenge, of course, is that as a startup founder, you have to work both like a maker to design and build your product, and as a manager to manage your customers and team if you have one. Finding the right balance is more art than science, but a fundamental concept that must be present to maximize productivity is flow. And that's the second principle. Design your work for flow. Now, there are 2 definitions of flow, and both apply here. The first comes from psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which defines flow as a mental state of operation when you are at your best. When you are in flow, you are so immersed in an activity that nothing else matters. You lose your self-consciousness and sense of time. Activities that flow typically have a clear objective and require full concentration without interruptions and distractions. And you probably already know that flow state isn't just restricted to work. A lot of people experience flow in sports and other activities. But here's the interesting bit. While a flow state can be triggered at will, you have to arrange activities to allow for flow, which nicely ties into the second definition of flow, which comes from the book Lean Thinking. Here's how the authors James Womack and Daniel Jones describe it. When we start thinking about how to line up essential steps to get a job done, to achieve steady, continuous flow with no wasted energy, batches, or queues, it changes everything. In other words, finding the right balance between maker and manager schedules requires designing your daily and weekly schedule for flow. So the last principle or concept is something that I learned from my friend and fellow bootstrapper Bijoy Goswami, and it's the concept of practicing right action, right time. The basic premise of right action, right time is that at any given time, only a few key actions stand to drive the biggest impact in your business. Your job is to focus on them and ignore the rest. Now, this is counter to how most people work. Especially in a startup, it always feels like there are 100 things we could be doing, but in reality, there are only a few things which can often be distilled down to just one thing. Your weakest link or bottleneck or constraint that you should focus on to have the biggest impact. This book, The One Thing, is a great quick read that reinforces this thinking, and I highly recommend checking it out if you've got time. So with these 3 principles out of the way, let me walk you through my 10 work hacks, and you'll see how I put these principles into practice to design my work for daily, weekly, and quarterly flow. The first work hack is establish uninterruptible blocks for maker work. Because maker activities require uninterrupted blocks of times, I schedule and block these off in my calendar as planned maker activities. During these blocks, I don't check email or social media or look at anything else to minimize distractions. For me, 2-hour blocks work best. A 2-hour block I find is long enough to allow me to ease into the task, so even if I'm not in the mood, simply sitting and thinking about the work at hand usually triggers me to get going and hit some level of flow. Sometimes though, this takes just a few minutes, other times it can take much longer. 2 hours, I find, is also the upper limit of my maker blocks. I used to schedule longer writing blocks when I was first writing my book, but quickly found myself drained just after 4 hours. So now I limit all my maker blocks to 2 hours, which is made up of 90 minutes for the maker task, and then another 30 minutes to wind down and reset before my next work block. In a typical 8-hour day, you can fit 4 of these blocks, 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Now, earlier I talked about the concept of focusing on your one thing. Most one things also end up being maker tasks, which brings us to work hack number 2. Achieve your one thing as early in the day as possible. Now, I've tried both staying up late and waking up early and find that getting my one thing done first thing in the morning works best for me because it allows me to start the task with a clean slate. I also find that accomplishing something tangible that early in the day sets the right tone for the rest of the day. Depending on the day of the week, I might allocate another 2-hour maker block later in the morning or afternoon, but these blocks typically aren't as intense as the first one. So let's talk about manager activities next. Work hack number 3, schedule manager activities as late in the day as possible. Planned manager activities like team and customer meetings are easier to schedule because they are time-boxed and calendar-driven. Unless there is an unworkable schedule conflict, I prefer to schedule these for the afternoon to avoid interrupting my morning flow. Now, both these maker and manager tasks are planned, but there are always going to be unplanned activities, which brings us to work hack number 4. Work hack number 4, always be ready for unplanned activities. Unexpected interruptions such as server or customer issues can surface anywhere, anytime throughout the day, but here too it's important to maintain perspective. It's important to identify what's urgent and important and what appears urgent but can wait. And you'll find that most things only look urgent, but in reality, they can wait. On server stuff, we use automated monitoring and alerts, and I periodically scan my email inbox and Slack channels during my 30-minute maker downtimes to see if anything really urgent pops up. Aside from organizing my day for flow, I also group specific tasks and activities by day of the week, which brings us to work hack number 5, identify the best days for planned customer activities. For instance, Mondays and Fridays are usually bad days for initiating new customer contact as people are generally recovering from the weekend or getting ready for it. So I plan these types of activities on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. This opens the door to work hack number 6, take advantage of customer downtime. Since Mondays and Fridays are usually slower from a customer perspective, I use them for larger maker tasks like writing or working on other products. On these days, I have more maker blocks than manager blocks. The next work hack is about being intentional to make time for customer FaceTime. This is because the common tendency for many founders is to increasingly rely on automated or asynchronous communication with their customers using tools like email or analytics versus actually talking to customers. Now, while asynchronous communication and tools are great for lowering real-time distractions and achieving scale, it's still important to create opportunities for FaceTime with your existing and new customers because this is where the best kind of learning happens. The best way to learn about unscripted or unexpected problems is through these unscripted customer conversations. So I allocate certain blocks outside scheduled customer meetings for no agenda, open discovery conversations with customers. For instance, I run founder office hours on Tuesday afternoons for my Lean Foundry members, where founders can schedule a 30-minute block and ask me anything. Okay, so far I have covered how I design my daily and weekly calendar for flow, but when you only focus on daily and weekly work, it can be easy to miss the forest for the trees. So you have to also design your work for the bigger picture. At the same time, because startups are riddled with extreme uncertainty, planning too far into the future is hard. This is why I'm a big fan of theming around 90-day cycles or quarterly blocks. I find that 90 days is long enough to make significant and measurable progress on any project, yet still small enough to learn and course correct along the way if the project isn't going as you expect. And this brings me to work hack number 8. Set a 90-day goal. While many people try to set goals, most struggle with setting good goals. This is where I take a different approach to goal setting. When taking on a new risky project, I don't try to set highly optimistic stretch goals that I'll most likely miss, but instead I focus on the smallest outcome I need to achieve in 90 days to still make the project worthy of pursuing. I call this the minimum success criteria, and you can find more about it in this video if you're interested. Now, your 90-day goal needs to be specific, measurable, and tied to a meaningful outcome. And for startups, I recommend tying this goal directly to your business model's traction metric. Setting a clear 90-day goal at the start of a 90-day cycle keeps me directionally focused on achieving a meaningful outcome, but it doesn't tell me necessarily how I'll achieve it. This is where work hack number 9 comes in. Work hack number 9, shortlist promising campaigns. You can break up any significant project into a set of smaller milestones and campaigns to achieve them. At the start of every 90-day cycle, I shortlist several promising campaigns or mini projects that have the best chance of helping me achieve my goal. I then select just one and maybe sometimes 2 campaigns depending on how much time they'll need and the resources I have available. These campaigns set the theme for the next 90 days, and there's one more checkpoint that I use to stay focused, which is work hack number 10, using regular 2-week sprint checkpoints. Much like you can break any project into a series of smaller campaigns, you can break up any campaign into smaller sprints. Think of these as mini checkpoints that help you adjust and refine your campaign along the way. For 90-day campaigns, I like using 2-week sprints, which again are long enough to complete a task, ship it, and measure from it. If you're familiar with the lean startup, think of these as build, measure, learn experiment cycles. The feedback and learning from these sprints help me double down on what's working and experiment with new tactics. To make all of this more concrete, one of the campaigns I started in my last 90-day cycle was this YouTube channel. While this channel is officially 11 years old, I had abandoned it up until about 4 months ago when I shortlisted YouTube as a possible growth channel for Lean Foundry. At the start of the 90-day cycle, I set a 90-day goal and committed to posting 1 video a week. I then organized my days and weeks to make time for brainstorming topics, scripting, recording, and editing these videos. It took about a week to get a video out and gave me another week to measure results, which nicely fit into these 2-week sprints. I reviewed my results every 2 weeks, which informed the next set of videos I created. And then at the end of the 90-day cycle, I reviewed my overall results to determine if this campaign was worth pursuing or abandoning. So what was the verdict? While we all want fast results, and I'd love to see this campaign, this YouTube channel grow to 100,000 subscribers overnight, it's always important to remember the law of compounding. The hockey stick always looks flat in the beginning, but it might still be growing, and the most visible inflections don't actually materialize until much further down the road. This is why it's helpful to model your growth as a traction roadmap, which is another tool I built and I'll link down in the description below. A traction roadmap helps you stay grounded and celebrate small wins so you stick with your campaign long enough to reap bigger wins down the road versus giving up along the way. So coming back to the YouTube channel campaign, I'm happy to report that I hit my 90-day minimum success criteria, and I'll be doubling down on this channel going forward. But I could certainly use your help. If you find this channel helpful, please like or subscribe, which will help me to keep bringing you more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.